Okay, so last week, Baruch Hashem, we finished the 11th parak of Mesillas Yesharim, which there he goes through many examples of nikias, of cleanliness, which means cleansing oneself from the more subtle transgressions. Like we always said the past few weeks, you know, one here robs banks, or lights fires on Shabbos, but there can be more subtle ways in which we can be nichshel chas v'shalom in gezela, in theft, in chilul Shabbos, and in midas as well. He went through balagayva, he went through anger and jealousy, to make sure that we are clean from all these bad midas and all these averos. Perik Yud Beis is a short perik, quantitatively. He describes there, how does one acquire cleanliness and how does one distance oneself from those things that detract from cleanliness? It's basically one principle as far as acquiring cleanliness. A person has to know. One has to know the halachas. One has to know what one can talk about on Shabbos and what can't talk about on Shabbos. A person has to know what's considered to be an act of jealousy and what's considered to be a person's motivated for a good reason to get something. So the only way to be proficient in nikiyas and cleanliness is to know the halacha. For example, I got a shayla this past week. I think it's a very common shayla from a very chashuv yid who has these halachas on his mind about a lashon hara shayla. I'm going to change the facts to protect the innocent and protect the guilty. Let's say a person used a tradesman, or used an electrician, or used, a carpenter, a yid, and he didn't do a good job. Or it appears he didn't do a good job, and it appears he overcharged, and whatever it might be. So, if someone approaches me, if I hear someone wants to hire that person, am I allowed to tell him, listen, you know that Yankel here is not the best electrician? Is there any electrician named Yankel in Hollywood? I'm not referring to him. I don't know. And let's say, I don't know of anyone who's going to hire him, but do I have an obligation to go on to the Shtiebel WhatsApp and just, guys, you should know, don't use Yankel?
No.
Okay, so we have to, this week, as Hashem, the next 2 weeks, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, we're going to go through Klal Yud in Sefer Chafetz Chaim, which teaches us all about the halachas. When are you allowed to be megala, to publicize when a person did wrong you for the purpose of saving others from going through the same thing? And when can't you? There's 7 stipulations you have to fulfill in order to be able to say something. And that's an example of Nikias, that if we're not holding, myself included, clearly in Hilchos Lashon Hara, so I don't know exactly how to act. So that is what he's talking about here in Perik Yud Beis. If one has to know the halacha in order to be a naki, things that detract from Nikias are the same things that detract from Zehirus and from Zrizas, which is being too fatift, too involved in Yonei Olam Hazeh, being too involved in pleasures in this world, Schreck v'latzen, which is lightheadedness, and a bad group of friends. Those things detract from all of these good midas. So that's Nikias. Now starts the second section of the Sefer. Until now, we had 3 midas. We had Zehirus, Zrizas, and Nikias. Zehirus, we said, was staying away from Averas. Zrizas was how I approach mitzvahs. And Nikias is being clean on even the more subtle parts of the Avera. That makes a person a tzaddik. Someone who has mastered the first 3 midas is called a tzaddik. From now on, we want to be chassidim. We want to be a chassid. Dr. Rabbi, you agree? You want to be a chassid?
Absolutely.
Where's the Rebecca? She wants to be a chassid. So with that starts precious. The first midah here is precious. Precious means holding oneself back from that which is mutter. It's the tchilas hachasidus, says the Mesillas Yesharim. So he says what Zehirus and Zrizis is sur meira. It's going away from the bad. That means there are averas that it's usher no matter what for us to come into contact with. That's a sur meira. Let's stay away from the bad. Precious is asay tov. Right? A chassid begins with the, okay, I'm not doing any averas. Now what more is there to do? It's to improve ourselves once we're already not doing any averas. So it's all based on a Gemara in Yevamos that says, Kadesh atzmacha b'mutter lach. A person should make himself a kadosh, which we translate as holy, really means separate, but mutter lach, with that which is mutter. So we're not just answering ourselves from things that are asr, staying away from things that are asr, we're also going to stay away from things that are mutter, but we have to define what that means. Does that mean we shouldn't have bagels and coffee Sunday morning? That's mutter. And it says here, I have to kadesh atzmacha b'mutter lach. Maybe I shouldn't have bagels and coffee. So we'll see what that means. Says the Mesillas Yesharim, the kavanah is that I prohibit on myself. I stay away from things that are mutter because I have a fear they might lead to something that's awesome. So it's right now it is mutter, but I know myself that if I indulge in whatever it might be, that I'm going to end up doing something that's asur. That's the idea of precious. So says the Mesillas Yesharim, there are three dargas, he calls it, when it comes to, I guess, averas. You have the isurim atzmam, the actual avera. Then you have what Chazal prohibited. So you have the actual cheeseburger. Let's say you cook the milk and meat together, right? That's the Isser Daraisa. Then you have what Chazal enacted, which is waiting X amount of hours between milk and meat. And then a person has what he himself, it's mutter, but I'm going to add an extra gather, an extra boundary, because I feel that if I don't do that, I'm going to come to do the Ve'er itself. And precious, which is asking that which is mutter, really is a personal thing for each individual. Meaning, my precious is different than your precious. What you have to be marked yourself from is not what I have to. What I have to is not what you have to. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Kol sheyiras chet oy kodemas lechachmasa chachmasa miskayemas. Whoever's yiras chet comes before his chachma, his knowledge, the chachma is miskayemas. So the Bar Tanura asks, what's Kol sheyiras chet oy? His fear from his sin. It should have been yiras oy min hachet. His fear of sin, not fear of his sin. The Mishnah says, whoever's fear of his sin comes before his chachma his knowledge will stay. It shouldn't have said fear of his sin. It should have his fear of sin. Yirasoy min hachet. Says the Bar Tanura, or it might be the Gra. I'm not sure if it's the Bar Tanura or the Gra. One of them says, it's true either way, that the idea is that each one of us has certain averas that speak to us. There are certain averas that I have more of a connection to, that I must distance myself more than you have to. And there are certain averas that someone else has a connection to, that he must distance himself more than I have to. So kol sheyiras chet oy, the fear of his sin is before his chachma is miskiyama. So a person has to look within himself and see which averas am I more prone to violate, and distance myself, set up my own personal gedarim. That's what Precious is about. So whereas Zehirus, Rizas, and Nikiyas is really shavel kol, we're all equal in that. When it comes to Chasidus, now the Avodas Hashem becomes a little more personal, has to be more tailor-made to each individual. That's how he starts off the parak. Then he asks the kasha that we're all thinking of, right? Yerushalmi in the Dharam says, Lo dayecha masha asra Torah. It's not enough that which the Torah prohibits. Sha'ata bala esra lecha dvar mecherim. You're coming now to add more restrictions. The Torah gave enough restrictions. Why am I adding more restrictions to the Torah that the Torah laid down? That's number one. Number two, Chazal were very smart. That's the understatement of the year, right? They're very smart. And they answered whatever they felt was necessary to answer, and they didn't prohibit that which they felt was allowed to be permitted. Who am I in Tafshanai test? I'm going to come now and prohibit something that Rabbi Akiva held, and Rav Meir, and the Mechaber and the Ramah, and the Mishabur and the Aruch HaShulchan all held is not a problem. I'm going to come now and answer for myself. And also, there's no gvul. If I'm going to start answering things on myself, then maybe I'll keep Shabbos. I'm going to keep Shabbos already on Thursday afternoon, because I want to make sure that I don't, and I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to eat any meat, because I'm afraid that maybe, and I'm not going to eat any bread, because then also a person can drive himself crazy if he starts answering things on himself that the Torah doesn't mandate. And the fourth kasha asks the Mesillas Yesharim, is the Yerushalmi in Kiddushin, in the fourth parak, that says, She'asit adam liting din lifnei hamakom. We are going to be held accountable in front of Hashem. Al kol ma shero einov, for everything that my eyes saw. V'lo yirotzu le'echel men, I didn't want to eat. Kadosh Baruch Hu puts things in the world, puts good yishmach, the food in the world, puts fresca in the world for us to enjoy it. So afal pi shehoya muter lo v'hoya yachol, even though it was mutter, I'm going to be held accountable if I didn't indulge in it. Based on the pasuk in Koheles, Chol asher sha'u einai lo altzalti mehen. Shlomo Melech says, whatever my eyes saw, I didn't hold anything back. So, it's a steer. On the one hand, Kaddish atzmacha b'mutter lach, we're encouraged to answer things that are mutter. On the other hand, we have these Chazal saying that you have to indulge in every pleasure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you. And, why are you answering more than the things that Chazal answer? So explains the Mesillas Yesharim as follows. He says that obviously there are distinctions, and we have to make different chilukim. Alti tzadik harbe, says the pasuk in Koheles, don't be too righteous. You have to follow what the Torah says. So what's the get? How do I know if my precious is a good thing or is a bad thing? He says, we know, we've already discussed earlier in the Sefer, that everything in this world is an Isayim, is a challenge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the second we get up in the morning until we go to sleep at night, the day is full of challenges, number one. And number two, our predisposition, our predisposition is to go for the Averis. That's how we're wired. And we have to use our seichel, our mind, to overcome. Says the Mesillas Yesharim a very strong observation. He says, there is no pleasure in this world that will not come with an Aveira in the end. There is no pleasure that I can enjoy in this world that if it goes unrestrained, without control, that will not lead to an Aveira. So when you eat a morsel of bread, that potentially that for sure will lead to an Aveira unless I control that. He gives an example, Derech Moshel, HaMeichel v'HaMishta, food and drink. Kishet nuku mikol yisuri achila hemutar, it's mutter, right? There's no chashosh, there's no, in Achashverosh's Seudah we learned yesterday, right? There were no, everything was kosher. Omnam, milui hakaris moishech achav prika sa'ol. Filling one's stomach, that leads to throwing off the yoke of heaven. If one fills the stomach with the most kosher of food. Umishta hayayin, and drinking, moishech achav znus, u'shar minei roin. And drinking wine, and dare we say whiskey and vodka, will I say that?
Yes.
Also can bring to znus, it brings to other bad things if these things are not controlled, if they're not controlled by the person.
There's a simple truth that I can add if you allow me.
Please add.
Every person can see a huge difference if he comes in the morning to Shiur after beautiful breakfast and see how his tefillah goes, and one day he come without eating in the morning how his tefillah goes. Huge difference. Shamayim va'aretz different.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. That's proof what you just said.
Right. Okay, excellent. That's right. Says the Mesillas Yesharim that when the person's already in the Aveira, it's very hard to hold back. It's very hard to not get caught by the Yetzer Hara. So says the Mesillas Yesharim, Shebodenu rach b'mena, when al kein tzarech, it's necessary. Shebodenu rach b'mena, when we're still, right now, we're far away from the Aveira, yashir atzmei rachak, he should remain far away. He should keep himself far away and not get close to the Aveira. For example, use a few examples. Clothing. As long as any garment that has four corners, you put tzitzis on, and you make sure there's no shatnez, there's no tzemer and pishtin, it's 100% mutter to wear the clothing. But we all know if a person wears extremely fancy clothing, that could lead to a gaiva, that could lead to other bad midas. A person should dress nicely, should wear nice clothing, but it shouldn't be too much. That's an example of precious. Why can't I get the Armani suit and the very fancy this, the very fancy that? Because that's going to lead to a gaiva. That's Tiyul and Dibor, going out for a trip with the family, with the friends, talking about some things is fine, but we know Baroiv Dvarim lo yechtal pesha. Says the pasuk says in Mishlei that the more one speaks, for sure he's going to come to some transgression. So these are things that are mutter, but if they go, like we said before, not with control, not with hashgacha, not with supervision, they can come the day of Vedas. So the yesod that he says is, so how do we know what should I indulge in, what should I not indulge in? So I'll read the words and then I'll explain it. Don't take from this world with anything that I'm doing. Only take from this world that which I need. Anything else I should not take. Precious tells me to not take anything more than I need. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you can only eat, you have to eat just enough to keep yourself alive? I don't need more than that, right? And the clothing, I have to wear exactly what I need to be clothed, to be tznius, and then, and not to be cold. Like, that's it. And the house, I just need a house that will just, my body can fit into, right? And I have a little table and a chair, and like that's, for each member of the family, a table and a chair, and that's in a bed, a small little bed. What kind of mattress? You have to get a mattress straw. If we slept on straw, you get used to it after a while, it'll be fine. So should we get rid of our mattress and only use straw? So the idea is, he's saying what you need to survive, but we have to be honest in our assessment of what we need to survive. So we need, and the key is to be honest, that's the most challenging part. But we need mattresses, and we need to have a nice meal. These things we need. The tricky part is we have to realize, when is it going too far? The third slice of pizza already maybe is the precious, right? So the Yesharim Precious is, I take what I need, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives me that, but I have to be intellectually honest to understand what I need. But whatever I don't need, so I should put away. So do you need that second, that third hamburger, the fourth hot dog? That's where Precious kicks in. It doesn't mean that you have to mamish take the Mishnah on Pirgavos Kipshutai Pasmel Toichel. Maybe that's an ideal to be able to survive just on bread and salt and a little bit of water. But one has to understand where he's holding right now, what position he's in, and then take only what he needs to survive in that sense. He finishes off the parak by saying, the true klal is whatever I don't need for my sanity. Again, we have families, and we have to take care of the family, and we have to do things that are fun, and we have to go to Disney World sometime. We have to do things that we feel we need, but we should have in mind, and again, we can't become OCD about this, right? We can't always think, every second of the day, do I need this? Your wife serves you dinner, and you're thinking the whole sugya, Rashi and Tosfos, should I have it, shouldn't I have it? That's not normal, right? We always say that as a chashuv yisoid in Yiddishkeit, you have to be normal, right? Sfard Mos, everyone agrees. Ashkenazim, Sfard, everyone agrees. You have to be normal. Now, what's normal? So I decide. That's a separate discussion. Who decides what normal is? But
that's what the problem is.
That's what the problem is. That's correct. But the klal amiti is that a person should only take what's mukhrach and leave what he doesn't need. Whatever he feels is necessary, whatever the reason might be. If I go away, if I abstain from something that's mukhrach, the Yesharim says in Kiddushin, if I do not indulge in a pleasure Hashem sends my way because I need it, so I'm a sinner. Chas v'shalom, a person's a sinner. It's a difficult balancing act. But whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends me that I need, I have to indulge in. This is the klal, the general principle is, whatever you need, you have to take. Whatever you don't need, you can't take. That's the klal. But the pratim, the details, there's no shulchan aruch about that. That's each individual has his own shulchan aruch as far as what the details are. And he says it's impossible to gather all the details because there's so many. So that's the challenge. The Yiddishkeit is not easy, right? It's not easy. It's not like someone's going to tell you what to do. In Yiddishkeit, Chazal tell us the klalim, the principles. We have to apply that. We have to figure out, okay, who am I? Who is my family? Where am I living? And apply the principles to ourselves. With being noitel eitz, with seeking counsel from other people. So our project this week is going to be to think about one area in our lives. Now, it's me personally. I think as Jews in general, food. Right? Food is a big part of our lives, right? More so than other religions and other nations. So maybe something in achila, or it could be anything, whatever speaks to you. Take something that is 100% mutter, and it could be a small thing, it could be a very small thing. And think to oneself, and for example, for me it's always an issue, challah on Shabbos. My wife bakes it on challah, fresh ishmael challah.
Second piece or the third piece?
Have the fifth piece. And
what's normal?
The problem is chronologically in the Suda, so first is the challah, and then there's a bit of schmoozing, and then the fish. So you could be sitting there, I'm sitting next to the challah. I should be sent to the other side of the table. So and it's there, and there's not much to do, and there's not much food in the first few seconds, whatever, minutes of the meal. So a person should think to himself, okay, I'm going to decide before my meal how many slices of challah I'm going to have. It's much to have 4 slices of challah, but do you need that? And you get tired. So I'm going to have 2. Make sure I have my kibetza. I have 2 slices of challah, that's it. Whatever, during the week, a person's whatever the context is, whatever the meal is. Think in achila, whether it's that soda. Do you need to have that soda? Do you need to have that ice cream? No, I was not thinking about that. Maybe I should have been. But a person, again, we shouldn't drive ourselves crazy. Again, we can't become neurotic about these things, but pick one area of Michael, one area of food, and see if there's something we can hold back on and it won't impact on our lives. That'll be the project for this week.